Hey everyone, welcome back to episode number 62 of the Beginner to Master Speedrun. I'm coming into today rated 2030, so hopefully we'll have another episode of instructive chess. And let's hop into the first game. Okay, first opponent playing Prisma 61. And I'm going to mix up the openings today. I'm going to play pawn to c4, the English opening. This is an opening I started playing when I was rated around 2030 US rating many years ago. And very often we can get transposition into a d4 opening. In this case, my opponent's playing a Leningrad Dutch. If I want to, I could play d4 and we can go into some mainline Dutch. But I think I'm going to stay with more typical English opening ideas. And I'll play the move g3. And one of the points of this opening is to develop in such a formation where white's controlling the d5 square. Now, my opponent is also controlling d5, so it's not the type of square I can plant a knight on anytime soon. I'm going to go for e3, and the plan is to play knight to e2 and castle. And my opponent is just kind of doing their own setup as well. Let's go for b3, looking to play bishop to b2. And then I'll have the double fianchetto of the bishops. Yeah, my opponent is still kind of creating their setup. This is very typical in the Dutch. Very often the knight can come to c7. I imagine at some point black will go for pawn e5. Like d4 is probably called for. Yeah, let's go for d4. So it feels a lot different compared to a king's pawn opening, but the pieces do harmonize quite nicely. And I think I'll play pawn a3, looking to play pawn b4, expand on the queen side, probably eventually queen b3. Yeah, let's go for pawn b4. And black is being very, very solid. This is the first confrontational move of the game. Finally, some pawn tension. And I do have some choices here. I could play pawn c5. Pawn c5, pawn d5 could really close things down. I could also leave the tension. I could play queen b3, aligning with the king. I could also take and then play queen b3 check. And queen b3, bishop e6, c6 would be hanging. But then c4 is hanging. Yeah, I want to leave the tension. Calculating queen b3, bishop e6, pawn d5. Which actually looks okay. Yeah, let's go for this. My opponent's playing relatively quickly, so definitely want to watch my time. Try not to burn too much time in the opening. But we are approaching the middle game. And now this is, I think, a pretty clear threat. Black goes for this. So we could trade the c-pawns, takes and takes. I don't think that's that great for white, though. I think I'd much rather play pawn d5 here. Although pawn d5, that miscalculates. Pawn d5, there's takes first. Takes. Ooh. I think I probably just blundered. I thought I could play this, takes, and be okay, but after pawn d5 takes first, takes, I'm losing a pawn. Okay, not the cleanest start. And if I take here, there's takes, queen c2, d5, my bishop gets stuck. Yeah, I'm really not happy with what I just did. I might go for d5, allow this, takes, and even knight takes d5. Maybe it gets a little bit complicated. Sometimes when you make a mistake early, you have to just try and cut the losses and not spiral downwards. I'm losing a pawn here. I'm down almost 3 minutes on the clock. So if knight takes d5, I think I can take on c6. Of course, black takes with the pawn. And now, yeah, there's just too many defenders. I'll play queen d3. So not my proudest English opening. But the good news is that my pieces are still on like decent squares. And this is a potential target. I'm looking at this move, knight f4. I mean, the knight is pinned. I can't really afford to take on e4. Maybe just rook b1 first. Just making sure that if I want to move the knight, my bishop won't hang. And next move, I probably want to go for this. Pressure the bishop, pressure the d5 pawn. But black's playing a good game so far. We might see an idea like bishop f7 and e6 to solidify. I'm probably not winning back the pawn. Considering knight d4 threatening this. f3 doesn't feel right. I really don't want to burn too much time. I'm just gonna play a improving move, rook c1. Just try and put the ball back in black's court, leaving the tension in the position. Like, my thought process was if I play knight f4, this happens, and then g5 might come. I don't want to be losing too much time. And I'm trying to stay flexible. I'm not sure yet if I want to play knight f4 or knight d4. It's possible black will just stay flexible too, like queen d7. Maybe prepare rook c8. Okay, e6 also makes sense. Yeah, I really don't want to take the knight. I'm going to go for this. Really just trying to gradually improve the pieces. And I'm beginning to eye the c6 square. Of course, I was threatening this. But now I can unleash the c-file, have this square for the knight. And maybe I'll look to play knight b3, knight a5, bring the other knight to d4. Like, even though I'm down material, at least I have some plans in the position. And everything is like decently solid too. There's no obvious weakness for me. But I guess the same can be said about black's position. Like, the main weakness is probably the c6 square. Also just the potential to use the c-file. Like, if we trade bishops, let's say takes and takes, I'll be ready to double rooks on the c-file. I think black's last move, rook b6, was an attempt to cover the c6 square. Maybe even now challenge the c-file. But if we see rook c6, I can play rook bc2. And takes, and I can keep the battery. I should also note that this bishop is no longer really doing anything in the position. But this knight is doing something. It's actually a nice looking move from black. a3 is attacked. I'll go for knight a5. This defends a pawn with the queen. Controls c6, so prevents rook c6. And if rook c8, I can still double up my rooks. And time is leveling out a little bit. Pawn to e5, okay. So black has a big center. But maybe this pawn is more vulnerable. Or maybe not. I have a4 here. Trapping the knight? Almost trapping the knight. a4, e4 though. I'm calculating queen b3 and then this. Oh, I don't think it works. It's really close to working though. Maybe, okay, a4, e4, queen d2, knight a3, rook c7? I should probably go for that. Yeah, let's do it. Like, there's no other way for black to save the knight here. I think black has to go for this line. Counterattack against the queen. Yeah, this is a move I want to play, but then d4 is too painful. So I'll play this. It does allow knight to a3. But the idea is that I'll infiltrate. Oh, this is about to get really messy. Queen takes a4, queen d4. Yeah, I'm down 2 pawns now. I have this move too. I think queen b2. So I'm hitting this knight. I'm also trying to set up rook a1. Okay, that move I missed. Wow, hitting the rook. I have rook takes a7. Defending my knight. I'm going to lose this pawn. I have no idea what's going on here. And this is an idea. Knight c6 to this square. Some mating ideas. Do I have takes and then this? Looks really close to winning material. Rook b3. I think this wins material. We trade queens. And then this. I guess there's rook b2 to counterattack. But I am hitting the knight and the rook. Rook b2, knight f4. And even though I'm still down 2 pawns, the 2 pawns that black is up are doubled. And with this move, I think... Wait a minute. If I play, let's say knight c d4, rook d3, knight f4. But there's knight b5. I think it's okay. It's the type of position I want more time to calculate, but I think I have this move. Takes. Yeah, this should win material. My rook was attacked, but now black's rook is attacked. If takes, I take with check. And I'm going to be up a minor piece, whatever black does. Yeah, I'll take. Okay. But I can't celebrate too early. I'm still down some time, down about 2 minutes. But this should be winnable now. Let's bring the bishop to a better place. Look to invade with the rook soon. Start with this. Cutting off the king. F2 is vulnerable. Oh, it's still close to checkmate. Um, how do I do it? There. I think I can play this. Have to watch out for the rook and knight coordinating. All I want to do is this and then this. Yeah, black has knight h3, king f1. My king's going to escape. And this is a mate in one threat. So black is probably going to take my bishop. And I'll be up a rook. But then knight g4. Okay, well, this is checkmate. Okay. Messy game to start the episode. Managed to fight my way back there. I thought this wasn't over, though. Like, if my opponent takes the bishop, plays knight g4, then the pawn's vulnerable. I have to play rook b3 probably. I'd have about 41 seconds to win this position. Probably doable, but yeah, it could have been a closer finish. Let's go back and let's try and take away some lessons from this opening, early middle game. Yeah, I mean, hopefully this is like a nice example of an English setup where white's pieces harmonize quite nicely, should be very solid. And then here I just went terribly wrong with queen b3. Very big mistake. Yeah, I probably should have taken here. This engine's top move. And then if black takes back, I could probably use a c-file, keep playing positionally. Actually, the engine likes the idea of playing d5 here, clamping down, enabling knight d4. Okay, I can see how this is nice for white. And this actually makes sense, having the pawn very well supported, controlling space. And if ever e5, I can take e6 or e5, I can always take on e6, and then the d6 pawn would be very weak. So, okay. Hopefully an important lesson in the early middle game to be aware of the opponent's ideas. And I think I saw this move. I thought I had d5. I just didn't realize there's this kind of in-between move, counterattacking my queen. And hopefully this is another lesson that even when you make a mistake early on, there's still a lot of room to fight back. And I was able to kind of keep the tension. Actually, here, white's already for choice according to the engine. It did get messy, though, after a4. Just want to see if anything was missed. Okay, queen b2 apparently was a mistake. Engine likes rook a1. Yeah, when I played queen b2, I didn't see black's idea in knight e8 to save the knight and counterattack the rook. And then this was a big mess. And it looked like I was winning material here, but yeah, black can survive with rook b2, attacking the knight. If I move the knight, knight c4 will come. Black should be doing very fine. But after rook b3, then yeah, the rook and knight kind of got a bit clumsy, and this was very nice. And then rook takes f7 was a very important find. Just to show, if rook to d3, I would play knight f4. And yeah, I'd be winning material because the rook's attacked, I'm controlling these two squares, and it's tied down to defending the knight. Black is still fighting after rook takes d4, has a knight and two pawns for the rook. So yeah, maybe this could have happened in an alternate universe. But okay, we're keeping the no loss streak up to 2038. Let's keep it going. We'll do another. Playing Chessmatic. I think this is my first titled opponent of the speedrun. CM stands for Candidate Master. FIDE Candidate Master. I wonder if my opponent knows like who I am. And if they click on my profile, they'll see that this is an authorized speedrun account. We have a ready opening. This is a sign that we're likely going into a King's Indian attack. Usually g3 and bishop g2 will come. There's a few things can do against this. I think I'll just... actually, what do I want to do? Actually, thinking about bishop g4 is kind of interesting. Try and disturb white's setup. I guess knight d2 is coming, though. Kind of debating how creative do I want to be here. I could also play knight c6 to prepare e5. Let's go for knight c6. And maybe we'll have a reverse like Peart's opening. I'll play e5. And I probably want to just employ some solid setup, like bishop e7, bishop e6. Okay, we see pawn c4. Oh, we might get some reverse Sicilian if I play this. I'll play knight f6. Just want to accelerate development. And we do have a reverse dragon Sicilian. So, not an opening I get too often. This could come from an English opening move order, though. So maybe staying with the theme of the English opening. And yeah, generally the knight likes to drop back to this b6 square. a4, opponent's playing very quickly. I think I'd like to go for a5 here. Prevent white from playing a5. Create the potential outpost square for the bishop, or for the knight, I should say. Maybe the bishop. Bishop e3. Thinking bishop to g4. It's a question where to develop the bishop to. I'm not too afraid of takes and takes. It's definitely an idea for white, though. Yeah, maybe this is a bit more natural. And if white takes, then I'll have the bishop pair and have the c-file to work with as well. So white does go for it. Plants the knight on b5. d4 might be coming. Kind of like starting with f6 here. But maybe it's not necessary. I'm thinking white is ready to play this move. Takes, takes. Although I could play e4. Yeah, let's start with f6. We do see d4. Okay. I have a choice. I could take and just liquidate the whole center. I could play e4. e4, knight d2, and then f5. Also e4, knight d2, maybe I take on d4. I think this is okay. Knight e1, interesting. So f5, I think makes a lot of sense. Defending the pawn. d5 is under control. Pawn b3. Yeah, white's playing like really, really quickly. I think I'm getting a very reasonable position here. Have knight b4. So we both have outposts on the b file. Rook c8 is controlling the open c file. And this is a problem piece for white. It's completely dominated by my pawn. f3 does make sense. Now it's a question, Do I want to take... Maybe bishop d5 makes more sense? Try and make sure the pawn's defended. Now I'm realizing that there's some queen g4 idea. Am I losing the pawn? I could take with bishop. But then we trade everything, still queen g4. But then rook e8. Okay, I'm going to start with this. So if queen g4, I take on f1. If rook takes f8, I'm calculating queen takes f8, queen g4, rook e8. Essentially trying to defend the pawn with tactics. That move I did not see coming. Do I have this move? 93. Takes, sack the rook. Probably not. I have this move maybe. Looking to lift the rook over. I was more expecting queen g4 instead of bishop h3. White's continuing to play very quickly. Now rook f6. And pieces are finding happy places. Expecting this move, knight g2. And this does give me the option of knight d3. I'm considering g5 just to restrict the knight. And then there's queen g4. But maybe that's okay. Okay, I'm going to start with knight d3. Really got to watch my time. Position looks good, but yeah, it won't matter if I have no time. I think I have to take now. I can choose what to take back with. Okay, now the G file's open. Oh, there's a really beautiful potential sacrifice. Let's start with this. If king h1, queen takes f4. Oh no, my queen, but then I'll be mating. So we might see king f1. But looks like white's king is going to be very exploitable. Bishop h4 here. Now king f1. But how to make progress? I have this move. Hitting the bishop and hitting b3. And if I can win b3, then maybe eventually I can get bishop c4. Keep harassing the king. Okay, that's a good sign. So it takes... Yeah, because the queen is now tied down to the bishop. I think white was hoping for bishop h5 ideas, but I think it's just too slow. Now with queen e2, I have bishop c4, pinning the queen to the king. Oh, there's this move. Idea takes and then queen c8. Double attack to win back material. But actually, if queen c1, I play bishop c4 first. And that should be pretty good for black. There's bishop e2 in that line. I have a feeling we're going to see this play out. Queen c1, bishop c4, bishop e2. I take, and then rook f2. And then it should be winning, because king moves back. Yeah, we'll see it play out. I mean, white has no other choice. So basically, after rook g2, there's just nowhere good for the king to go. King f1, I have rook f2. king e1, I have the discovery. And if king g1, I have mate in 2. Okay. Definitely took some work. Opponent really put me in some time pressure by just blitzing out the opening. And sometimes this can be an effective strategy, but sometimes it can backfire. I think in this game, my opponent probably should have slowed down somewhere in the middle game. I think the position was fine for white. Even after this, the engine slightly prefers pawn d4 here, which I actually thought is one of the points of bishop e3 is to prepare the central break. But yeah, hopefully we see the kind of the nature of this imbalance. Like even though my structure doesn't look great, I had like good minor pieces, and that can offer, I mean, based on what happened in the game, it offered more compensation for the damaged structure. D4, E4. Yeah, and I think knight E1 was probably a slight positional mistake just because the knight is so restricted by this pawn. Generally, the knight on D2 offers a bit more purpose. Sometimes can also support F3. And then going forward, yeah, there was a moment around here I wasn't 100% sure about, but the move I was expecting was queen g4 to attack the pawn. And when I saw this from a distance, it just seems like black is losing a pawn because there's no move to defend it directly. But, oh wow, just realizing the move I was thinking about playing is just a terrible move. I was thinking about playing rook e8 here, but this just loses to knight c7. The thought process was if takes, I would take, and then bishop g5, I win back e3. Yeah, so hopefully I would not have actually played this if my opponent played queen g4. Knight c7 is just crushing me. If rook d8, then yeah, white can take and then win the pawn on e4. It's very, very good for white. So if queen g4, engine says that the only move for black not to be worse is to play h5. I don't think I would have found this move. So deflecting the queen away from attacking e4, and then I guess black does have like decent compensation here. But okay, none of that happened. My opponent played bishop h3, and I think this just gave me enough time to get a very, very good position, especially when the rook came to f6, and this was a nice transformation. And I just want to show this line that if king h1, I'm sure my opponent saw this as my next move in this position, I would play queen takes f4 with the point if pawn takes f4, e3, and black is mating, queen f3, bishop takes f3, checkmates. Apparently this isn't actually winning for black. White does have a move here, bishop e6. Wow. I can take the bishop either way, but the point is white sacks the bishop and then we'll take the queen. The black is still doing fine after this, and then bishop g4, threatening the queen and threatening bishop f3. And then the resulting endgame, let's say like this, and then takes. Black is still maybe slightly better. So that could have been interesting. But yeah, it didn't go into that, and eventually everything just crumbled for white. So 2 pretty hard-fought games so far. Been definitely facing some pressure on the clock, but at least making up for it over the board. Let's do one more, up to 2045. Next opponent, playing Tashinov, 2905, from Zimbabwe. And okay, I'll play Sicilian. If we see open Sicilian, yeah, I'll play the Accelerated Dragon. So maybe we'll get a reverse version of a similar position from the previous game. Bishop to e3. Not the most common move order. I think it's likely to transpose though. I'll play knight f6 first. There's a trap here. If takes e5, I would have queen a5 check to win the pawn. And we see bishop to e2. So this is called the classical variation. It's a line that I used to play as white, like way back when, growing up in scholastic tournaments. Against queen d2, I'm pretty sure I can play d5 right away. This is one of the main differences between Accelerated Dragon and normal mainline Dragon. Usually in like the normal mainline, you commit to d6 very early. But in Accelerated Dragon, you leave the pawn back, and in a line like this, black can play d5 in one move. So not wasting the tempo. And really just trying to challenge the center before white can castle. There's actually an idea here, like if takes, like normally black can just take back immediately, but there's also knight b4, which might be slightly preferable just to ensure that a knight is going to stay on d5 to pressure the bishop. Because if takes, knight takes, my queen would land on d5. That's also probably fine. Like bishop f3. We see knight c6 first. Okay, I'll take back. Are we going to see pawn e5? And then I'll have a similar decision to my previous opponent, whether to retreat the knight all the way back or to a lesser passive square. If e5, I probably, okay, I don't have to worry about it. I guess there is also knight g4 too. So here, I could take with knight or pawn. I think pawn is just better. And have the two center pawns against zero center pawns. Ideally, I'd like to play this and fork and win material. If I play e5 right away, there is bishop f3. Bishop b7, I don't think I want to commit to. Am I so scared about bishop f3? Let's say e5. There's also bishop g5, which I guess then d4. Yeah, I have to calculate a little bit. e5. Cases with bishop f3 also have e4. I think it's okay. Let's go for e5. Always have to be careful. Like when you do have the two center pawns like this, very often they can be quite strong, but there's also cases where they're just targets. And want to make sure that I have enough ways to keep them defended. And I mean, with rook e8 coming, with either push possible, everything should be under control. There is a move bishop c5 here, but then just rook e8, bishop b5, bishop d7 should be okay for black. Yeah, we might see this play out. Rook a d1. So 3 attackers now. Yeah, that's interesting, because now if I move my bishop to defend, then bishop b5 can come, and the rook is struggling to find a square. So I might go for d4 here. Question the knight. I mean, there is a pin on the d file, though. Bishop e7 is possible. Also considering queen c7. Yeah, tricky position. I think I'm still leaning more towards this move. Because eventually I'll move my queen, the knight will be attacked. If knight b5, Oh, knight moves, I have this move. Yeah, let's go for d4. And white has options here, especially because this is not a threat. Bishop f3, rook b8. I think another benefit to d4 is this bishop is kind of in no man's land. In my territory, not defended, can't come back to e3. And actually, I probably do have a threat of queen c7 to simultaneously attack the bishop and also unpin my d-pawn to attack the knight. So white probably can't afford to play some move like rook e1. Knight a4. That's a good sign. I mean, I do have this move, and I could take and get the bishop pair. I could also maybe start with bishop d7. But I think it's better in this case just to grab the bishop pair, not giving white any time to save the bishop. Although, wait a minute. Let me just calculate. Bishop d7. Queen b4, I guess. And rook b8. And maybe that's better. Knight is really sidelined. Queen a3. And then knight e4. Okay, I'm going to go for this. Knight e4 was probably the simpler option, but I'm trying to punish my opponent to like the full maximum. As if b3, then probably knight e4. It's a better version. Yeah, imagine if queen b4, white's pieces are going to get jumbled up on the queen side. And then maybe there's a possibility to go for a kingside attack. My pieces can come in quite quickly. Okay, the time situation is much better this game compared to the previous two games. It seems like the only options for white are b3 or queen b4. We do see b3. So, actually very close to winning material here. I can take and then fork. Queen b4, rook b8, queen a3. I think that's a very forcing line. And then knight c3. It's like pure initiative. Every move is a punch. I guess there's rook e1. One more time. Takes. Knight e4, queen b4. Rook b8, queen a3. Like so close to trapping the bishop. Maybe I have queen a5. I'm going to go for it. Like black is fully dictating play. This is the only move to save the queen and the bishop. And this is the only move. I guess there's queen c4 too, but queen c4 I pin and should win material. And now, yeah, the thought was this move. But then bishop d6. Okay, I'm going to start with this. Bishop d6, rook d8, bishop b4. I think white is probably saving the bishop. Rook b6, there's bishop to c7, unfortunately. I guess what I could do after bishop d6, I could just take. And after queen takes, take on a4, win a pawn. These pawns are weak. That should be pretty good for black. If I don't see anything better, that's probably what I'll go for. Oh, bishop e7. Didn't see that move coming. Okay, so knight c3 is still on the radar. Rook e1. And again, so many lines I can just win a pawn, which is probably what I'll end up doing. I have this move though. Am I trapping the bishop? Bishop here, and then here. I think I am. Oh no, there's this move. Okay, I'm going to start with this. If bishop h4, then I'll probably cash in and win the pawn on a4. Go for the queen trade. Yeah, this bishop went on a journey. Everything's still under control. And if white wants to avoid the queen trade, I can keep winning pawns. So up a pawn here. And white does have the bishop pair. Light squared bishop could be annoying. Let's fight for the b file. It's the only fully open file on the board. Maybe I could have taken and played knight c3. It's probably slightly better there. And it's still an idea. Like the knight's going to be quite strong, hopefully. Yeah, I think now knight c3. Attacking the bishop and the a2 pawn. That's a good move. Maybe this move. Just keeping the tension between the rooks. Yeah, taking on a2 would not be good because takes and then the knight would hang. So the plan is very simply to play a4 and basically provoke white to take on b7, and then I get full control on the b file. Eventually I want to infiltrate via b2. That's a move. I could still play this. e4 also looks attractive. We'll start with e4. Imagine white's going to try this, yeah. And I think everything's okay though. Like my rook will control b7. Or defend from b7, defending f7. And it's difficult for white to really apply any more pressure. White's trying though. That's a move. What to do? Maybe attack the bishop? And if bishop takes knight, I take on c4. And this bishop's almost trapped, like amazingly enough. The only safe square it can go to is a6. And then I probably just win a2. It's weird to have such an open position where the bishop is just so short on squares. But it just goes to show like how dominant the setup is. Knight on c3 controls so many key squares. Just want to make sure it takes bishop a5. Yeah, that's no concern. I was thinking rook here, the bishop moves, but everything's okay. Could even play a3 here. Yeah, it is an opposite color bishop situation, which sometimes will have a drawish tendency, but in such a position with so many strong pawns, this should be a pretty straightforward win. And d3 is incoming, a2 is incoming, d3 would threaten bishop d4. And now d3 attacks a1. So the dragon bishop finally about to breathe some fire. Yeah, gonna win the rook. I could start with bishop e5, but we'll just make a queen. Okay. So I think out of the 3 games, this is probably the cleanest game. I think everything was in control, start to finish. And hopefully a nice example of like how to dictate play early from the Accelerator Dragon. And also one of the reasons to play the Accelerator Dragon rather than the mainline dragon. The mainline dragon is d6. d4 takes. And it's just a slightly different line where because black's committed to d6, there's not really the possibility of playing d5 so soon. But what happened this game, yeah, d5 came quite quickly, and yeah, white basically just conceded the center and didn't quite get enough counterplay. And very soon, yeah, the position just was very, very difficult for white. I did take time around this moment, like looking for a clear tactical win. I'm seeing the engine point out a move which I probably should have spotted. It's black to move and trap this bishop. I was mainly just looking at rook b8, improve with tempo, but I can play the move queen c7, just trapping the bishop. White could try and fight with bishop f3, but after takes, I'd have, 2 minors for the rook. So decisive advantage for black. What happened in the game was also good. Eventually won the pawn, and yeah, I think everything was pretty smooth from here. So, yeah, I think I'll wrap it up here. Thanks everyone for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the games today. If you have any questions, do leave them below, and I'll see you guys soon for the next episode. Stay tuned.